The autumn rain tapped against my office window as I stared at the case file. Another jewelry heist, another dead end. I'm Stella Turner, Richmond PD's rising detective with a secret that could end my career. My fingers traced the photo of a stolen Victorian locket, its distinctive markings matching an illustration in Treasures of the Victorian Era, a rare first edition I'd been hunting for months. Detective Turner, you might want to see this. Officer Davis dropped a note on my desk. Another witness statement, but this one mentioned a book. My heart raced as I grabbed my coat and headed to Morrison's Antique Books, a dusty haven in Richmond's historic district. The bell chimed as I pushed open the heavy wooden door. Morrison's smelled like old leather and secrets, perfect for both my official investigation and personal quest. Between towering shelves, I caught glimpses of a blonde woman in a navy blazer, moving with purpose. Last copy, Mr. Morrison said, pointing to the Victorian section. Just came in this morning. I hurried through the maze of shelves, my heels clicking against hardwood floors. There it was, the leather-bound first edition I'd been searching for. As my fingers reached for the spine, another hand brushed against mine. Electric. I looked up into stormy gray eyes that belonged to the blonde I'd noticed earlier. She was stunning. High cheekbones, subtle freckles, and a small scar above her right eyebrow that only added to her allure. Sorry, we both said, then laughed. Her voice carried a slight southern lilt that made my stomach flutter. I'm Kira, she said, not withdrawing her hand from the book we both held. Kira Bell. Detective Stella Turner, I replied, showing my badge. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't let go of the book. Instead, she smiled, a knowing, challenging smile that made me forget about the case for a moment. A detective interested in Victorian jewelry? She raised an eyebrow. That's intriguing. Something in her tone suggested she knew more than she let on. The way she emphasized jewelry sent warning bells ringing in my investigator's mind. We stood there, neither releasing the book, creating a moment that felt both professional and oddly intimate. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the shop's windows. Lightning flashed, illuminating her face in brief, dramatic bursts. Perhaps we could share, Kira suggested, her gray eyes holding mine. Over coffee? The proposal was innocent enough, but something in her expression hinted at deeper mysteries. I should have said no. Maintaining professional distance was crucial in my line of work. Instead, I heard myself say, "There's a cafe around the corner." As we walked out together, the book between us like a shared secret, I couldn't shake the feeling that this chance meeting would change everything. The Victorian locket case, my carefully guarded personal life, the strange woman beside me, all pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. Little did I know, Kira Bell would become both my biggest breakthrough and my most dangerous complication. The autumn rain soaked into my coat, but I barely noticed, too aware of her shoulder occasionally brushing mine as we navigated puddles together, heading toward a future neither of us could predict. That coffee turned into daily meetings, as Kira's connection to the jewelry heist became clear. She worked at an auction house that had handled several pieces matching our stolen items. Each late-night interrogation felt less like police work and more like dancing around an unspoken attraction. The locket passed through our gallery last spring, Kira explained one evening, her fingers wrapped around a cooling mug of chamomile. The precinct's harsh fluorescent lights softened her features, making her look vulnerable. Something felt off about the paperwork, but I couldn't prove it. I found myself watching her lips move as she spoke, the way she tucked stray blonde strands behind her ear. Professional distance was becoming harder to maintain. My partner, Detective Martinez, started giving me knowing looks whenever Kira visited the station. "Turner, a word." Martinez caught me after one particularly long interview. She pulled me into the break room, coffee pot brewing between us like a buffer. "You're spending a lot of time with our witness." "She's crucial to the case," I defended, perhaps too quickly. Martinez raised an eyebrow, her expression a mix of concern and amusement. "The way you look at her isn't about the case," she said softly. "And the way she looks at you. Just be careful, Stella. Office rumors are starting." I should have heeded her warning, but that night, Kira called with new information. We met at a quiet diner near the river, where the neon lights painted everything in soft blues and pinks. She wore a cream sweater that made her gray eyes look almost silver. "The gallery owner's been acting strange," she whispered, leaning close. Her perfume, something subtle and expensive, made it hard to focus. "Last week, he shredded files after hours." I managed to save this. She slid a crumpled paper across the table. Our fingers brushed during the exchange, lingering longer than necessary. The document revealed a pattern of suspicious acquisitions, all pointing toward organized art theft. But my mind kept drifting to the warmth of her skin against mine. "You're putting yourself at risk," I said, concern coloring my voice. "These people are dangerous." The protective instinct rising in my chest wasn't entirely professional. "Worth it," she replied, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Someone needs to stop them. And I trust you, Detective Turner." The way she said my title, half teasing, half intimate, sent shivers down my spine. Martinez's warnings echoed in my head, but they were growing fainter with each meeting, each shared glance, each accidental touch. Later that week, reviewing security footage at my desk, Martinez dropped another file in front of me. "Chief wants updates on the Bell witness interviews." Her tone was carefully neutral. "Says you're spending an unusual amount of overtime on this one." I stared at the folder, seeing Kira's name in black and white. The professional part of me knew I should step back, assign another detective, but the thought of someone else protecting her, someone else earning her trust. "I'll handle it," I said firmly, ignoring Martinez's concerned sigh. Outside my window, Richmond's lights twinkled like stars, reminding me of how Kira's eyes sparkled when she smiled. I was crossing a line, blurring boundaries that should stay sharp and clear. But as I watched another security tape of Kira leaving the gallery late at night, looking over her shoulder nervously, I knew I couldn't step away. Whether it was the detective in me or something more personal, I was committed to seeing this through, whatever the cost to my career, or my carefully guarded heart. My suspicions about Kira being in danger proved right during a routine surveillance operation. A black sedan had been following her for 3 days straight. I watched through binoculars as she hurried from her apartment, constantly checking over her shoulder. "We need to move her to a safe house," I told Martinez, trying to keep my voice steady. "These aren't just art thieves anymore." The surveillance photos showed men with criminal records far more serious than fraud. The safe house was a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. I insisted on taking the night shift myself, ignoring Martinez's knowing look. "Just keep it professional, Turner," she warned as she handed me the keys. Kira arrived with a small suitcase and that rare Victorian book we'd both reached for weeks ago. "Light reading," she said with a nervous smile. The sight of her trying to maintain composure made my chest ache. The first night was awkward, both of us hyper-aware of sharing the same space. I sat by the window, watching shadows move across empty streets, while Kira curled up on the couch with her book. "Tell me about becoming a detective," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, intimate in the dim light. I found myself sharing stories I'd never told anyone, about my childhood dreams of solving mysteries. Days blurred together. We developed a routine: morning coffee, case discussions, quiet dinners. I noticed everything about her: how she hummed while cooking, the way she tucked her feet under herself while reading, her habit of touching my arm while making a point. The storm hit on our 5th night together. Richmond's sky turned violent, thunder rattling windows as rain lashed against glass. The power went out just as Kira was making tea in the kitchen. "Stay where you are," I called, grabbing my flashlight. I found her in the darkness, her hand outstretched. Our fingers met in the beam of light, and suddenly the space between us felt charged with electricity. Lightning flashed, illuminating her face, those gray eyes wide and searching. Thunder crashed overhead, but I barely heard it over my heartbeat. "Stella," she whispered, my name sounding different on her lips. I knew I should step back, maintain that professional distance. Instead, I found myself moving closer. The flashlight clattered to the floor, rolling away and casting strange shadows on the walls. Her hand found my face in the darkness, thumb tracing my cheekbone. The touch sent sparks through my entire body. All my training, all my carefully constructed walls, crumbled in that moment. When our lips met, it felt inevitable, like the thunder following lightning. Her mouth was soft, tasting of the mint tea she'd been about to make. My hands tangled in her hair as she pressed closer, the kiss deepening with an urgency that took my breath away. Reality crashed back when my phone buzzed. Martinez warning about suspicious activity near the safe house. We broke apart, both breathing hard. The power flickered back on, harsh fluorescent light shattering the moment's magic. "I'm sorry," I started to say, professional guilt flooding back. But Kira pressed a finger to my lips, shaking her head. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't apologize for something we both wanted." The certainty in her voice made my heart race all over again. But duty called. I spent the rest of the night by the window, gun close, watching for threats. Kira eventually fell asleep on the couch, the Victorian book still open on her chest. Looking at her peaceful face, I realized I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The kiss had changed everything, making the threat against her feel even more personal. As dawn broke over Richmond, I made a silent promise. I would protect her, solve this case, and figure out what this thing between us meant, even if it cost me everything I'd worked for. The anonymous email hit the entire department like a bomb. Detective Turner's midnight rendezvous with female witness. Attached was a grainy photo from the safe house window, our silhouettes during that thunderstorm kiss. My stomach dropped as I watched whispers spread through the precinct. Martinez found me hiding in the evidence room, pretending to review case files. "Chief wants to see you," she said, her expression sympathetic. "Now." The walk to his office felt like a death march. Every eye followed me, conversations dying as I passed. My career, everything I'd worked for, balanced on the edge of a knife. Chief Anderson sat behind his desk, the email open on his monitor. "Sit down, Turner." His voice was unreadable. I braced myself for suspension, or worse. "Sir, I can explain," I started, but he held up his hand. "You're one of my best detectives," he said, surprising me. "Your closure rate is exceptional. Your dedication to protecting witnesses is admirable." He paused, studying me. "Even when that dedication becomes personal." My hands trembled in my lap. "The case hasn't been compromised," I insisted. "I've maintained professional." "Stella," he interrupted, using my first name for the first time in years. "I don't care who you love. I care about solving cases and protecting people. You're doing both." Relief flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. "Sir?" "The department's changing," he continued. "Maybe it's time we had an openly gay senior detective." He slid a folder across his desk. "The art theft case is bigger than we thought. I'm promoting you to lead investigator." I left his office in a daze, clutching the folder. Officers who'd been whispering minutes ago now offered congratulations. Martinez hugged me, whispering, "About damn time." Kira was waiting in the interview room, panic clear on her face. She'd seen the email too. I closed the door behind me, heart racing. "I'm so sorry," she started. "If I've ruined your career." I silenced her with a kiss, not caring about the window or who might see. When we broke apart, her eyes were wide with surprise. "They promoted me," I said, laughing at her shocked expression. "Lead investigator on your case. Apparently, being out isn't career suicide anymore." She touched my face gently, tears in her eyes. "You're amazing, Stella Turner. But the case is more important than ever," I finished. "We're close to something big. The threats against you, the stolen art, it's all connected. And now, I can protect you openly." That evening, the precinct held an impromptu celebration. Officers who'd never spoken to me before shared drinks and stories. Martinez gave a tipsy speech about partnership and pride. Even the chief stopped by, raising a toast to Richmond PD's finest no matter who they love. Later, alone in my office, Kira perched on my desk while I reviewed new evidence. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Being out?" I looked up at her, this woman who'd turned my life upside down in the best way possible. "Like finally being able to breathe," I admitted. "Though we still need to be careful. You're still under my protection." She leaned down, brushing her lips against mine. "I've never felt safer," she whispered. The case files lay forgotten as I pulled her closer, knowing tomorrow would bring new challenges. The art theft ring was still out there, probably planning their next move. But for now, in this moment, everything felt perfectly right. A knock at the door made us jump apart. Martinez stuck her head in, grinning. "Sorry to interrupt, lovebirds, but we've got a lead on the gallery owner. Time to get back to work." Kira squeezed my hand before letting go. "Go be a hero, detective," she said softly. "I'll be here when you get back." I grabbed my badge and gun, feeling more confident than ever. Finally, I could be both the detective I'd always wanted to be and the woman I'd always been afraid to show. The real investigation was just beginning. My mother's shrill voice cut through the phone like a knife. "Stella Marie Turner, why am I seeing pictures of you kissing a woman on Facebook?" The local news had picked up the story of Richmond PD's newly promoted openly gay detective, and someone had tagged my parents. "Mom, I can explain," I started, but my voice caught. Beside me, Kira squeezed my hand, her presence giving me strength. We were sitting in my apartment, case files spread across the coffee table. "Your father and I are coming over," Mom declared. Now, the line went dead before I could protest. "I should go," Kira offered, but I held onto her hand tighter. After everything we'd been through, facing my parents alone felt impossible. They arrived within the hour, Mom in her Sunday best, Dad unusually quiet. The silence as they settled onto my couch was deafening. Mom's eyes kept darting between Kira and me, her lips pressed into a thin line. "So," Mom finally said, her voice tight, "how long has this been going on?" I started to answer, but Dad surprised everyone by speaking first. "Helen, remember what we talked about?" His voice was gentle but firm. Mom's shoulders sagged slightly. "Right, yes." She took a deep breath, then did something completely unexpected. She smiled. "I suppose I should introduce myself properly. I'm Helen Turner, and this is my husband James." Kira, ever graceful, extended her hand. "Kira Bell, it's wonderful to meet you both." What followed was the most surreal dinner of my life. Mom asked about Kira's work at the gallery, Dad shared embarrassing stories from my rookie days, and not once did anyone mention the word gay. After dessert, Dad asked to speak with me privately. We stepped onto my small balcony, Richmond's lights twinkling below. I braced myself for disappointment. "Your mother found those old photos yesterday," he said quietly. "The ones from your high school basketball team." I remembered me and Sarah Matthews sitting too close in our uniforms. "She cried for hours, not because she was ashamed, but because you felt you couldn't tell us." Tears burned in my eyes. "Dad, Let me finish," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I watched you become an amazing detective, always putting others first. You've made me proud every single day. This?" He gestured toward the apartment where Kira and Mom were clearing dishes. "This just means you're finally putting yourself first, too." I broke down then, crying into his shoulder like I was 12 again. He held me tight, whispering, "I love you, kiddo, all of you." When we returned inside, Mom was showing Kira my baby pictures. "And here's Stella, at her first detective costume party. She insisted on wearing a fedora everywhere for months." "Mom," I protested, but Kira's delighted laugh made it worth the embarrassment. Later that night, after my parents left with promises of Sunday dinner next week, Kira and I lay tangled together on my couch. The case files remained untouched, forgotten in the emotional whirlwind of the evening. "Your parents are wonderful," she murmured against my neck. "Your mom invited me to her book club." I laughed, running my fingers through her soft blonde hair. "You've been officially adopted into the Turner clan. There's no escape now." She propped herself up on an elbow, looking down at me with those mesmerizing gray eyes. "I don't want to escape," she whispered, before capturing my lips in a tender kiss. My childhood bedroom still existed unchanged, pink walls and all, waiting for visits I rarely made. But tonight, my parents had helped build a new kind of home, one where I could be completely unashamedly myself. The case would demand our attention again tomorrow. The art thieves weren't going to catch themselves, but for now, wrapped in Kira's arms with the weight of secrets finally lifted, I felt invincible. Sometimes the scariest mysteries aren't the ones we solve for others, but the truths we reveal about ourselves. The evidence hit my desk like a physical blow. Security footage showed Kira entering the gallery vault after hours, removing something small enough to fit in her pocket. The timestamp matched the night before another piece disappeared. "It could be a coincidence," Martina suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. We both knew better. In detective work, coincidences rarely exist. I'd been staring at the same documents for hours, willing them to tell a different story. Bank records showed regular deposits to Kira's account from an offshore company known for art laundering. The dates aligned perfectly with each theft. "Turner," Chief Anderson called from his doorway. "A word?" His expression was grave as I entered his office. "We have enough for an arrest warrant." My throat tightened. "Sir, there has to be another explanation. She's been helping us." "Or using you to stay one step ahead," he interrupted gently. "Your relationship with Miss Bell is precisely why you should have seen the signs." The drive to Kira's apartment felt like a nightmare. Each turn brought back memories. Our first kiss in the rain, family dinner with my parents, quiet moments solving puzzles together. Had it all been a lie? She opened the door wearing my Richmond PD sweatshirt, hair damp from the shower. The sight made my heart ache. Stella? What's wrong? I held up the surveillance photos. Please, my voice cracked. Tell me there's an explanation. Her face went pale as she looked at the images. You don't understand, she whispered. It's not what you think. Then help me understand. The words came out sharper than intended. Because right now, all evidence points to you being part of the theft ring we've been chasing. She moved to touch my face, but I stepped back. Don't, I warned. Just tell me the truth. I was documenting the fakes, she said quickly. The gallery owner, he's been replacing authentic pieces with forgeries. I've been gathering evidence. Why didn't you tell me? The hurt in my voice was unmistakable. Because he threatened my sister. Tears spilled down her cheeks. He knows where she lives, her kids' schools. I couldn't risk it. I wanted desperately to believe her. But years of detective work had taught me that the most convincing lies often come wrapped in emotional truth. The bank deposits? I asked, watching her reaction carefully. Consulting work for art authentication. She moved to her desk, pulling out files. I can prove it. Just give me time. Time was the one thing I couldn't offer. The warrant would be issued by morning. Kira, I said softly, if you're involved, tell me now. I can help protect you. She looked at me then, gray eyes swimming with tears. I love you, Stella. Everything between us has been real. My phone buzzed. Martinez warning me the arrest team was en route. I had minutes to decide, trust my heart or trust the evidence. Show me everything, I said finally. Every document, every piece of evidence you've collected, now. We spent the next hour going through her files. Her story started making sense. The careful documentation of switched paintings, dates matching the deposits, photos of the gallery owner meeting with known forgers. But one detail kept nagging at me. The Victorian locket, I said, the one that started this whole investigation. Where does it fit? Something flickered in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? Before she could answer, pounding on the door made us both jump. Richmond PD, open up. Kira grabbed my hand. Stella, please, trust me one last time. The door burst open, Martinez leading the team. Time seemed to slow as I made my decision, one that would change everything. I stepped between Kira and the officers, my badge held high. She's working undercover, I declared. And I can prove it. Martinez lowered her weapon, confusion clear on her face. Turner, what are you doing? I met Kira's eyes, seeing equal parts gratitude, and something else, something that made my detective instincts scream. I'd just put my career, my reputation, everything on the line for her. I prayed I hadn't just made the biggest mistake of my life. Chief Anderson's face was thunderous as he slammed the case file onto his desk. You compromised months of investigation, Turner. The DA's office is breathing down my neck. I stood at attention, my badge and gun already surrendered. The evidence I'd promised about Kira's undercover work had fallen apart under scrutiny. Now she wasn't answering her phone, and her apartment was empty. I'm removing you from the case, he continued. Effective immediately. Take some personal leave. Clear your head. Martinez caught up with me in the parking lot. I've got uniforms watching her known locations, she said softly. We'll find her, Stella. But I barely heard her. My mind was replaying every moment, every touch, every whispered conversation. Had I been completely blind, or was there still something I was missing? Back home, I found a note slipped under my door. The handwriting was unmistakably Kira's. The truth is in the book where we first met. I'm sorry. K. My hands shook as I retrieved our Victorian book from the shelf. Inside, tucked between pages 143 and 144, was a single photograph, the gallery owner accepting a package from a man I recognized from our most wanted list. The date stamp was yesterday. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Storage Unit 247, Richmond East, midnight, come alone. Every instinct screamed trap, but I had to know. Without my badge and gun, I felt naked, vulnerable. But I grabbed my backup piece from the safe department, regulations be damned. The storage facility was dark, autumn wind whistling through metal doors. Unit 247's padlock hung open, inviting me in. My flashlight beam caught movement in the shadows. Kira? I called softly. I told them you'd come. Her voice was different, harder, professional. She stepped into the light and my heart stopped. The Victorian locket hung around her neck. You're Interpol, I breathed, pieces finally clicking into place. She nodded. Deep cover for 2 years. The gallery's just a front for an international smuggling operation. But someone leaked my identity last week. Why didn't you tell me? The hurt in my voice was raw. Because I fell in love with you, she whispered. It wasn't part of the plan. I couldn't risk. A noise outside cut her off. Footsteps approached, multiple sets. Kira's eyes widened in fear. They followed you. Or you, I countered. Trust still fragile between us. She pulled out a flash drive. Everything's here. Names, dates, shipping manifests. Get it to your chief. She pressed it into my hand, her touch lingering. I have to disappear. Like hell, I started, but she silenced me with a desperate kiss. I love you, she breathed against my lips. That was never a lie. Before I could respond, she slipped into the shadows. The storage unit's door rattled with impact. Someone trying to break in. I had seconds to decide. Follow Kira into the darkness, or face whatever was coming through that door. The flash drive felt heavy in my pocket, weighted with truth and consequences. A crash echoed through the facility. The door burst open, revealing armed figures in black. I dove behind a crate, hearing Kira's footsteps fade away. In that moment, everything changed. I wasn't just a suspended detective anymore. I was someone who had to choose between love and duty, between following my heart and following the law. The beam of a tactical light swept past my hiding spot. Time had run out. Whatever choice I made next would define not just my career but my entire life. I took a deep breath and made my move. I chose both duty and love. Rolling from behind the crate, I fired 2 warning shots into the ceiling. Richmond PD, drop your weapons. A lie, since I'd been suspended. But they didn't know that. The armed figures scattered, giving me the opening I needed. I sprinted after Kira's fading footsteps, the flash drive secure in my pocket. Behind me, shouts and gunfire erupted. Richmond's warehouse district was a maze at night. My lungs burned as I ran, following glimpses of blonde hair in the darkness. Kira was heading toward the river, toward the abandoned art storage facilities. Stop running, I called out. Let me help you. She paused at a rusty door, silhouetted against the moonlit river. They'll kill us both, she warned, but waited for me to catch up. Inside, the warehouse was a cathedral of shadows and forgotten art. Massive canvases loomed like ghosts in our flashlight beams. Footsteps echoed behind us. Our pursuers hadn't given up. The evidence, Kira whispered, pulling me behind a sculpture. It proves the gallery owner is working with terrorist financiers. The art smuggling is just a cover. That's why Interpol's involved, I realized. Her hand found mine in the darkness. I never meant to fall in love with a local detective, she said softly. You complicated everything. I tend to do that. I managed a smile, squeezing her hand. A voice rang out through the warehouse. Agent Bell, Detective Turner, let's be professional about this. I recognized that voice. The gallery owner, Marcus Chen, the man from Kira's photograph. He's not alone, Kira breathed against my ear. His security team is ex-military. We have the building surrounded, Chen called. The evidence, please, and we can all walk away. I felt Kira tense beside me. He's lying, she whispered. No witnesses. My phone vibrated. A text from Martinez. Back up 2 minutes out, hold on. I pulled Kira closer, our foreheads touching. Trust me? Always, she whispered. And the certainty in her voice made my heart soar. I stood up, hands raised. Chen, let's talk. Detective Turner, he emerged from the shadows, flanked by armed men. The sensible one. Where's my flash drive? Safe, I replied. Like the real Victorian locket you replaced with a fake. He smiled coldly. Impressive. Not many spotted that switch. The original's in Paris, Kira called out, standing beside me. With enough evidence to destroy your operation. Chen's smile vanished. Kill them both. Everything happened at once. I tackled Kira behind a marble statue as gunfire erupted. Police sirens wailed outside. Glass shattered as tactical teams rappelled through skylights. Richmond PD, freeze. Martinez's voice had never sounded sweeter. In the chaos, Chen tried to run. Without hesitation, Kira launched herself at him, taking him down with a perfect tackle. I reached them just as she slapped handcuffs on him. "Marcus Chen," she announced formally, "you're under arrest for international art theft and terrorist financing." "You're blown," he spat. "Your career's over." Kira smiled. "Worth it." Later, as EMTs patched up our minor cuts and bruises, Kira leaned against me in the back of an ambulance. The flash drive was safe with the FBI. Chen and his men were in custody, and the sunrise was painting Richmond's sky in brilliant colors. "So," I said, playing with her fingers. "Dating an Interpol agent, that's new." She laughed, then winced from her bruised ribs. "Former Interpol agent. I'm thinking of going private sector. Richmond has a certain appeal now." "The art scene?" "The detectives," she corrected, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of adrenaline and promise. Martinez cleared her throat nearby. "Chief wants statements from both of you. And Turner? He says to bring your badge back tomorrow." I held Kira closer, feeling her smile against my neck. We had statements to give, careers to sort out, and a lot of explaining to do. But, right now, in the golden morning light, none of that mattered. We'd chosen each other. Duty and love aligned at last. The rest was just details. The press conference room was packed, cameras flashing as Chief Anderson approached the podium. I stood to the side, newly reinstated badge gleaming, while Kira waited in the wings. "Today marks the successful conclusion of a joint operation between Richmond PD and Interpol," the chief announced. "The arrest of Marcus Chen and his associates has dismantled one of the largest art theft rings in the eastern United States." Reporters shouted questions, but my focus was on Kira. She'd traded her tactical gear for a navy blazer, looking every bit the accomplished art expert she truly was. Our eyes met across the room, and she gave me that secret smile that still made my heart race. "Detective Turner?" a reporter called out. "How does it feel to be Richmond PD's first openly gay senior detective?" The room hushed. A month ago, that question would have terrified me. Now, with Kira's encouraging nod, I stepped to the podium. "My sexuality has nothing to do with my ability to solve cases," I stated firmly, "but if my visibility helps other officers feel safe being themselves, I'm proud of that." The chief's hand squeezed my shoulder, silent support that meant more than words. Questions flew about the case, the investigation, the international implications. I answered each one professionally, until someone asked about my relationship with the Interpol agent. "Detective Turner and I worked closely to bring down this organization." Kira stepped forward, her voice steady. "Our personal relationship developed after the case began, but never compromised the investigation." After the press conference, the department erupted in celebration. Officers who'd once whispered behind my back now offered congratulations. Martinez hugged us both, whispering, "About damn time," for what felt like the 100th time. The chief called me into his office, Kira following. "Hell of a job, both of you," he said, closing the door. "Turner, the promotion to senior detective is official, and Ms. Bell." "Agent Bell," she corrected with a smile. "Agent Bell has been offered a position as our new art crimes consultant," he finished, pending her acceptance. My head snapped toward Kira. She hadn't mentioned this. "I accepted this morning," she said, reaching for my hand. "Richmond's starting to feel like home." The chief cleared his throat. "Keep the PDA out of the office and we won't have any problems. Dismissed." In the elevator, I finally asked, "You're staying?" "Wild horses couldn't drag me away," she replied, pulling me close. "Besides, someone needs to keep you from getting shot at." That was one time. 3 times, actually. I counted. The doors opened to reveal Martinez, who rolled her eyes at our position. "Get a room, you two." "Actually, wait, we're all heading to O'Malley's to celebrate. You're coming." The bar was packed with officers and their families. My parents arrived, Mom immediately pulling Kira into a conversation about her book club. Dad watched them with a proud smile. "Never thought I'd see my daughter this happy," he said, handing me a beer. "Or this successful. You've done good, kiddo." Kira broke away from Mom to join us, sliding an arm around my waist. "Your daughter's amazing," she told my father, "even if she's terrible at spotting art forgeries." "Hey," I protested, but they both laughed. The celebration lasted well into the night. stories were shared, toasts were made, and plans for the future began taking shape. Kira and I left around midnight, walking hand in hand through Richmond's quiet streets. "So," she said, swinging our joined hands. "Senior detective and art consultant. Think we can work together without getting distracted?" I pulled her close under a streetlight, remembering our first meeting at the bookstore. "Not a chance," I murmured against her lips. She laughed, the sound echoing off old brick buildings. "Good answer." Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges. But tonight, walking home with the woman I loved, everything felt perfectly aligned. My badge, my heart, my future, all pointing in the same direction at last. The city lights twinkled above us like stars as we made our way home, two people who'd found each other in the midst of chaos and chosen to build something beautiful together. Moving in together happened gradually, then all at once. First, it was just a drawer of Kira's clothes in my apartment. Then her Victorian books started appearing on my shelves. Finally, one morning over coffee, she said, "Let's make this official." The department gossip mill had a field day when we started apartment hunting together. Martinez helped us find a perfect two-bedroom in a historic building near the river, complete with built-in bookshelves and enough space for both our collections. "You two are disgustingly domestic," she commented, helping us move boxes. "Remember when you thought she was a criminal mastermind?" "She is," I replied, watching Kira organize our books by period and genre. "She's just my criminal mastermind now." "I heard that," Kira called from the living room. "And I prefer art intelligence specialist, thank you very much." Our first case as official partners involved a series of missing Renaissance sketches. Watching Kira work was like poetry, the way she could spot the tiniest inconsistency in a brushstroke, the confident tilt of her head as she examined frame damage. "The forgery's good," she said one evening, poring over photographs, "but the paper's wrong for the period." I was more focused on how the lamplight caught her hair than the evidence she was pointing to. She noticed, of course. "Detective Turner, are you paying attention?" "Always," I smiled, pulling her closer. "You're saying the paper's wrong?" "Hopeless," she sighed, but kissed me anyway. We solved that case in record time, earning commendations from both the department and the art world. Our reputation grew, the detective and the art expert, Richmond's dynamic duo. One Saturday morning, we were browsing an estate sale when Kira suddenly grabbed my arm. "Stella, look!" There, on a dusty shelf, sat a familiar leather-bound volume, Treasures of the Victorian Era, the same edition we'd both reached for that first day at Morrison's. "What are the odds?" I laughed, reaching for it. "Wait," she said softly. "Let me." She picked up the book carefully, running her fingers along its spine. "You know, I wasn't actually looking for this book that day." "What?" "I'd been tracking Chen's operation for months. Intelligence suggested he had a contact at Morrison's. I was their surveillance. So reaching for the book at the same time. Pure chance," she smiled. "Best mistake I ever made." We bought the book, of course. It joined our growing collection, a symbol of how the best things in life often come from unexpected moments. That night, curled up on our new couch, Kira read aloud from the Victorian jewelry chapter, while I pretended to review cold cases. Really, I was watching her, the way her eyes lit up at particularly interesting passages, how she absently played with my fingers as she read. "We should open our own agency," she said suddenly, looking up from the book. "Combine your detective skills with my art expertise." The idea took root immediately. "Turner and Bell investigations?" "Bell and Turner," she corrected with a grin. "Alphabetical order?" "We'll negotiate," I laughed, pulling her down for a kiss. Later, as Richmond's lights twinkled outside our windows, we started planning our future. Cases we'd take, offices we'd need, the perfect balance of police work and private investigation. "You know this means more dangerous situations," I warned. "More criminals, more risks." Kira just smiled that confident smile I'd fallen in love with. "Bring it on, detective. We make a pretty good team." Looking around our new home, at the life we'd built from that chance meeting in a bookstore, I couldn't argue. From art thieves to terrorist financiers, from hidden secrets to public celebrations, we'd faced it all together. "Pretty good team," I agreed, holding her close. "The best." Outside, autumn leaves danced past our windows, and somewhere in the city, new mysteries waited to be solved. But right here, right now, Everything was perfect. Bell and Turner Art Crime Investigations. The brass plaque gleamed in the morning sun. Our office, a renovated Victorian townhouse near Richmond's Arts District, had finally opened its doors. "Still think it should be Turner and Bell," I grumbled playfully, watching Kira arrange her antique magnifying glasses on her desk. "Alphabetical order 1, she sang back, then paused, "though I might be willing to negotiate. Over dinner tonight." Our first year as private investigators had been a whirlwind of success. The Richmond PD regularly consulted us on art-related cases, and our reputation had spread up and down the East Coast. Even Interpol occasionally called for Kira's expertise. "Speaking of dinner," I said, checking my watch, "don't forget we're meeting Morrison at his bookstore later. He says he has something special to show us." The old bookstore hadn't changed. Same creaking floors, same dusty shelves, same magical atmosphere where we'd first met. Morrison greeted us with a knowing smile. "Ladies, perfect timing." He led us to the rare books section. "Just got this in yesterday. Thought you'd want first look." There, displayed in a glass case, sat a pristine first edition of Treasures of the Victorian Era, the book that had started everything. "It's signed by the author," Morrison added, watching our reactions. "Only 3 copies like it in existence." Kira examined it professionally, but I saw the sparkle in her eyes. This wasn't just a rare book, it was our story, bound in leather and gold leaf. "We'll take it," I said immediately. "Stella," Kira protested, "it's too expensive." "Consider it an investment," Morrison interrupted with a wink. "For the shop's favorite couple." Back at the office, Kira was still admiring the book when I suggested grabbing coffee at that corner cafe we loved. She agreed distractedly, too engrossed in the Victorian jewelry chapter to notice my nervous energy. The cafe was unusually empty for a Friday afternoon. As we sat at our usual table by the window, I nodded slightly to Martinez, who was pretending to read a newspaper nearby. "Remember our first coffee here?" I asked, reaching for Kira's hand. "After that initial interview about the gallery theft?" "You were trying so hard to be professional," she laughed. "Even though I caught you staring at least 3 times. Can you blame me?" I stood up, then dropped to one knee. Kira's eyes widened as I pulled out a small velvet box. "I fell in love with you over rare books and stolen art. You turned my life upside down in the best possible way." Tears sparkled in her gray eyes as I opened the box, revealing a Victorian-era ring, the one we'd tracked down together during our last case. "Kira Bell, will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." Cheers erupted as our friends emerged from hiding. Martinez, the chief, my parents, even Morrison. Mom was already crying, Dad beaming proudly. Later that night, back in our office, Kira examined her ring under her favorite magnifying glass. "Perfect clarity," she declared. "And definitely authentic." "I had an expert check it," I grinned, pulling her close. "Some brilliant art consultant I know." She laughed against my lips. "I love you, Detective Turner." "I love you too, future Mrs. Turner Bell." "Bell Turner," she corrected automatically. "We'll negotiate," I whispered, kissing her again. The signed first edition sat on our shelf, a testament to chance meetings and chosen paths. Outside, Richmond's evening lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in the city, new mysteries waited. But right here, right now, in our own little world of art and investigation, we had solved the greatest mystery of all, finding love in the most unexpected places. And this was just the beginning of our next great adventure,